Well, it's that time again, folks. A time for another Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info squeezed fresh right from the Grove. Or as I don't know who would say.
But really nothing compares with a freshly squeezed.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of Freshly Squeezed coming at you. So, go ahead and hit it. That's it. That's that time again. A magical time. For some reason, I don't know what it is with the Freshly Squeezes, but people seem to respond to them. I don't know if it's a topic. Could be just me, but they seem to really get you guys excited. So I'm really happy to be on here. You know, when OG set this up, we were like, hey, you know what? We got to cover this topic again, and I'm really excited to get the opportunity to do that today for you guys. So let's start with the panel. To my left, right, I don't know. This guy over here, the one, the only, OG55. How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic, Vash. Thank you so much for having me on Freshly Squeezed. This is gonna be a fun conversation. We dipped our toe into this conversation about a week or so ago, and it was so juicy that there was just more juice in that orange we needed to squeeze. We had to do another segment on this, and I'm really looking forward to really diving in and discussing it. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I think so. This one we kept on going back to, like, man, we got to do a little bit more on this because the last 10-minute bite, I mean, it generated so much hype. You know, we had Drunk 3PO talking about it, everybody talking about it. We had to dip our toes into it again, like you said. But the guy to below me right here, the fantastic Disney Family Man 23, or D23 as we like to call him in the house. How's it going there, George?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back on, and again, ready to talk some more on this topic because, as OG had mentioned, like, we dipped our toes into it a little bit, and we just wanted to keep on going, but unfortunately, we ran out of time. So, I'm glad that we're back on this topic. And to your comment of, was it the topic or you? I think it was a little bit of both. I think it's you mixed with that topic. It hit that algorithm just perfectly for the channel.
George, you're far too kind. You're far too kind. I know it was all the topic. For some reason, we tapped into something that was really interesting, and to go into it a little bit, I think it's a combination of kind of this influence culture that we have, right? And especially the vloggers and how profoundly influential they are when it comes to Walt Disney World or Disneyland Vacation. And for some of us who are kind of live out of state or live, across the country like you do, George, from Disneyland, it can be, hey, the vloggers are kind of a way to step into the magic when you're not actually physically there. And then you combine it with maybe some of the turmoil going on in Disney right now. I mean, this is a really fascinating conversation.
It really is, and actually, based on the response to it, of how many views that our video has gotten, it really shows that it does take an interest in the community to what we think, and more so to what they think. So they could be wondering the same thing of this concept. So it's very interesting.
Right. I wanted to correct something for the record. When I said it last and we showed that graph, OG, could you be so kind as to bring that up one more time? I meant to remake this because this wasn't like the best effort. I just ran out of time. I do really apologize for this, guys, but the title is a little bit deceiving. It's not really views over time. It's actually weekly views. And it's because these guys create content so often, sometimes daily, you can kind of track their averages and how they're bouncing around, right? That's kind of what this graph represents. And it's for each individual vlogger. Now, it's obviously not titled because we didn't want to put anybody on blast, but there are trends occurring, as we talked about before. And, everybody kind of has a baseline that they go in. Then the pandy happens, and then it gets all crazy. But as we're coming out of the pandy, as we're, coming out of the 50th, and some of these things that may have generated some increased viewership, we're now dipping below their previous baseline levels. And that was what I was trying to point out, and I didn't really explain it that well. So, guys, I mean, what is going on here? What do we have to say about all of this again?
Well, I kind of want to kind of echo my sentiments that I said the last time, and I want to kind of dive you a little deeper into this.
Absolutely.
I think what's going on here with the Disney, the in-park vlogging kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, the industry or whatever. It's like an onion. There's multi layers. Number one, I think what you alluded to, Dre, about the brand taking a hit. I think there's some truth to that for sure. I do think that Disney has been making some moves that have put a kind of a sour taste in many people's mouth. Like they, whatever it is, whether it be, reservations, whether it be, charging for stuff that used to be free, like Genie Plus and things like that. I do think there's an element there where the brand is taking a hit, and maybe, some people are just like, I'm not going to support the company anymore. And that's affecting these vloggers that report on Disney. Like if you're done with Disney, well, you're not going to watch a Disney in-park vlogger anymore. So that would really impact those vloggers, their views, their numbers, Yeah. It's a massive part of it. I do believe that is something at play here. Another thing that I think is at play here, and I want to preface this by saying I don't mean any disrespect to anyone in regards to this, but I do think there is a little bit of like this, like vlogging, in-park vlogging fatigue. I think that it really peaked in like 2017. Everyone and their mom started to do these vlogs and what have you. The market got real saturated. Which is actually one of the reasons why I didn't go in that direction with my channel, because I see when I was looking at the YouTube landscape, there was a ton of this stuff. Everyone was in park vlogging, but there were very few people that would just get in front of a camera and have conversations about the parks. That was very, very rare, and it still is to this day. So it became a very saturated market a few years ago, and I think we're starting to see the effects of that saturation. I think that the more saturated it got, people just kind of got more and more burnt out, right? Then the pandy hit, and now Disney, look, I know my parks people aren't going to like to hear this, but Disney is not focused on the parks right now. The priority number one for the Walt Disney Company is Disney Plus and the streaming war. So there's just not as many projects in the pipeline for these parks, for these in-park vloggers to even report on right now. Yeah. Remember, 2017, we had all kinds of stuff. Avengers Campus we were waiting for. We had Galaxy's Edge, even things like Pixar Pier. There was stuff being announced right and left for Florida, Tron, all this stuff. But a lot of that stuff now is starting to open up, and there's not as many new things to discuss. And I think that's part of this in-park vlog change. There's not as much hype around these parks with lesser stuff in the pipeline. So that's kind of the multi-layered thing I think is happening.
And I agree with you completely. And I just want to say before I hand off to you, George, that to your point, the brand is taking a hit and investment is down and the content is getting maybe a little bit stale because of those things. And you can see on this chart right here, and this is why I bring it up, you see people buck this trend. And who's bucking this trend? The people who have diversified their content, right? Adam the Woo, he went across the country and started going to small towns, and we see his numbers jump up as a result. We've seen some other vloggers kind of branch out in some other areas, and well, their personalities and how they cover stuff has been able to buck this trend successfully. I mean, you're really getting to a time here where you might want to, people are kind of starting to look at other things, and I think that's reflective in the vlogging community itself, just as it is maybe with park attendants. But George, go ahead. What are your thoughts on this? Absolutely.
And kind of to echo what OG was saying, I'm going to echo myself back the last time we were on this conversation, kind of mentioning to the fact that the same way with annual pass holders, right now, Disney is not really putting them ahead of the crowd. They are now more so pulling them back and putting regular ticket holders ahead of them. And what are the vloggers, especially in Florida and even California? They are California locals. They are Florida locals. They're annual pass holders to be able to go in every single day for 2 hours a day, record something, and walk right back out. Now, for a vlogger, that has hit them tremendously with what Disney stands for the annual pass is currently at right now. But for Disney, I can't blame them because they're not making no revenue on that. You know, it's helping the vlogger get paid through YouTube, but it's not doing the only thing it's doing for Disney. It's just getting the marketing campaign out for specific brands or like a festival. Like right now, Flower and Garden is going on at Epcot right now. So what is everyone doing? They're all covering Flower and Garden.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting the interesting thing as well is that these vloggers, right? They're a tool for Disney in a sense where they do, like you said, George, they do promote these parks and they do drive maybe some traffic to the parks, but they're also very unpredictable for Disney because unlike a Disney, commercial or whatever, they can't really control what the vloggers are going to say. So it's like you can have someone at the parks vlogging about something and trashing the experience. That's not necessarily so good for Disney. And I'm sure that uncertainty, Disney doesn't really like that too much.
Well, and
they
I'm
want to
actually
be able to control that message, and they can't control it really when, what I'm saying, it creates a sticky situation for them.
And I'm actually kind of glad you brought that up because there is one particular vlogger. I'm not going to mention their name just for the sole purpose of this conversation, but I have to say I am a very huge fan of theirs. And they were not invited to the Galactic Star Cruiser opening with the media. And they actually said on their video, the reason why is that Disney is not happy with them right now. That they were put on full blast because they were given their opinion of the price hike of the tickets and what have you. And they said, right, and even with the Galactic Star Cruiser, that they were just mentioning their opinion that they feel that a normal, typical middle-class family can't enjoy this new project made by Disney because it is so expensive. And they were literally completely blacklisted from the media event.
Interesting.
And they actually took to YouTube and they did not mince their words. They literally came right out and said, the reason why I was not invited was because of these terms. And on the other note of that, I think it's very funny that I had mentioned this before during the first conversation, that I'm starting to notice a pattern with these vloggers of moving forward to other things other than Disney. It's, for instance, with Royal Caribbean. When one vlogger does it, you see 3 more doing it after them. And it's literally the next day, or it's actually during the time that vlogger is on. So I don't know if they have their own little community where they kind of like go on Messenger and they say, hey, we're going to do this at this time. Because sometimes when you see those videos and you say, oh, they're so-and-so, coincidence? I don't know. Sometimes I don't think that's the case. And what I think is very funny is when I watch some of these vloggers, some of their sponsored commercials that they get is.
Oh, okay. We'll have to bring George back on.
Yeah. We're gonna back in.
He brings up a lot of interesting points here, and that really, like, this whole conversation about, kind of one vlogger does it and they all sort of follow, is sort of I think that kind of lends itself more just to a lack of overall creativity in the community, and again, no disrespect, but when everyone's making the same content, that's a lack of creativity. You're not trying to think outside the box and do something different. You're looking at the other creator that has, 200,000 subs, and you're thinking, okay, well, that works for that person, so now I'm going to do it, and I think that's a big part of that. That's a creativity issue, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, and these vloggers have been criticized for their lack of innovation, their lack of creativity. Like, as you said, OG, last time, go into the next churro, outing or whatever, right? they the parks put out a new cupcake, and it's like, oh, we all have to review that. And it's like, well, okay, now you're just following the trends and trying to keep people updated on all these things. But there's so many other outlets for that. What actually sets you apart? Is it your personality? Is it something else? It's interesting, George. You bring out something here that's that is an interesting kind of trend where we see, like, Royal Caribbean reach out, Peppa Pig reach out. From what I understand, from what it looks like, Disney knows which vloggers they can call on, right? And I think other industry leaders like Royal or maybe even Legoland, Peppa Pig, in that example, right? They know who to call up to cover these things because they know they're desperate for content. They know they're desperate for, to go out and cover anything. And so I think that's why we're seeing, so many of them get plucked to these things and hit the same weeks.
It really is, because Royal Caribbean actually was one of the commercials, so to speak, that popped up during the vloggers video for the sponsor. And I think that, and I've never really seen Royal Caribbean too much before as I am now. So I don't know if that is a marketing tool on Royal Caribbean's behalf because they're trying to get people, back on the ships and what have you. So they're using these vloggers as sort of like their own kite tails, so to speak, to extend their brand like how Disney would do. Because I think these companies are starting to notice that, these vloggers and Disney's relationships aren't really at the fullest right now. And I truly believe it kind of now I will mention his name because I know he's just a complete badass and I know he doesn't care, but it all kind of stemmed from Adam the Woo. He came out and he said, what, I'm not going to do as many Disney videos as I normally do. I may do like 1 or 2 a month, if even that. And as you had mentioned, Vash, he did his road trip with his father, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal. If anyone who has not seen the road trip with Adam the Woo and his father, definitely check that out on his channel. It was phenomenal.
So good.
Well, one thing I really want to talk about too is and I think this kind of directly affects what George was talking about in terms of like the creativity, and it even really affects the overall topic today about why numbers are down. And that's money. The money. It's always the money. And what I mean by that is that there is a grift. And there is also a misconception that a grift only cuts one way. The only way you can possibly be a grift is if you're positive and you're kissing Disney's ass. But that's not true, in my opinion. I think grifting can go either way. Either extreme can be a grift. You can be like a total pixie duster and love everything Disney does and magical, and here's another cupcake, and right? And you can do that to get access and whatever from Disney, right? That's a grift. But equally a grift are the brands that just hate everything Disney does. Believe me, there is big money in being negative. I mean, your local news, the nightly news, they've known this for decades. The good news doesn't sell. No. Negative news sells. So these companies, these brands that claim, well, we're more honest because we're just trashing Disney. Well, that's not necessarily the case. You can be that negativity could be your brand, and it could be very, very lucrative. Believe me, there are a lot of creators that have built a huge following on just being negative for the sake of being negative in a lot of ways. And that's a grift too. So just because you're not kissing Disney's butt doesn't mean you're not grifting. Doesn't necessarily mean you're being honest. Now, I will say this, because someone did mention this in a video I made recently, and they said, well, you and Vash were very negative about the Star Cruiser, so how can you say that, you just want like, and you don't want, when you're going into a Galactic Star Cruiser review, that you don't want negativity for the sake of negativity, when me and Vash were very negative as to what we were seeing coming out of the Star Cruiser. And I think this person, respectfully, no disrespect to them at all, but I think they missed the point of the video. The video's point was not that you can't not like something. It's okay to not like something. Every creator has a right to like or dislike something. That's not the point. Me and Dre, though, were being fair in regards to our critiques and giving reasons as to why we didn't like it. What I'm referring to are brands and creators that use negativity as a grift and just hate it all because it's good for their brand and good for their, their AdSense. That's the difference. That's the difference. Negativity for the sake of negativity because it sells. That's the difference. Not liking something is completely valid if that's how you genuinely feel.
And I do have to mention, and I completely agree with you, OG, and who actually does it really well. A quick shout out to Mr. Pete Werner from the Diz Unplugged. I have tremendous respect for him of how, he and his crew run everything. They work tirelessly. I actually have a few mutual friends that go in between the Diz Unplugged family. And the one thing that Pete had mentioned before was, and this was very smart of him, especially because he runs his own business, his traveling business on top with the Diz Unplugged, is that he says, we will not review anything unless it comes out of our own pockets. And I think that is a tremendous outlook of how you can notice something where you can report on something, but you cannot give your own personal opinion only unless it is coming out of their own pocket, where if they're covering something through a media event or Disney invites them, they will report it. When Craig even went to the Galactic Star Cruiser, it was a media event. He reported it, but he did not give his opinion on it.
And you know what, George, I want to echo your sentiments as well. I really respect Pete from the Diz a lot. One example was when all the shows were coming out, Harmonious and all that, right? And there was a lot of negative buzz in the community about those shows. A lot of fans and content creators did not like those new 50th shows. They still don't. And Pete came out and he made a video defending these shows and kind of calling the community out for being too negative and this, that, and the other. But the reason why I respect Pete for that is because it would have been easier as a content creator just to go with the flow. If everyone hates it, there's more views. It's more lucrative to go with that rage and garner the views from hating on something that everyone doesn't like. But he didn't do that. He took the unpopular approach, which is to actually say he liked Harmonious and Enchantment. He actually liked these shows. And he knew probably in the back of his mind, I'm probably going to get ratioed for saying this. But that's how he genuinely felt. So he said it. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. The difference between positivity for the sake of positivity and negative for the sake of negativity. Pete is the opposite of that. Pete didn't do it just because he knew it was going to be popular. He said what he said because he really felt that way. And I honestly respect the hell out of that. Good for him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's, to your point, George, about the review and Pete Werner, which is, he's awesome. I mean, I do love his rants. I do, but more than his rants, I do appreciate his honesty. I do appreciate his objectivity when it comes to these kind of things. And the way he has maintained it over the years, or at least has attempted to, is through that policy of, hey, we're not going to review something unless we actually pay for it, right? There's some old school journalists back in the 60s kind of thing where they wouldn't accept anything from anybody because it was like, I can't keep my objectivity if I'm going to review this, right? If I get a handout, or even if I take a puff pastry at some media event, like, it's like I can't do it. I had to keep my biases, and my subjectivity underneath my objectivity if I'm going to review something properly as a critic or whatever. So, I mean, it's that hardline stance, which kind of increases their, reputation a lot. It's interesting on that video, OG. I saw that comment too. Like, hey, you were negative on that. And look, we were harsh, yes. Nitpicky, maybe, but we were only going by what they were actually putting out about the Star Cruiser, right? We didn't have much to go on. And, even Disney themselves contend that their commercials and ads weren't the best because they deleted them. They got rid of them. Even they would concede, it wasn't the best showing. And we were just simply going by what we were being fed, what we were being allowed to see, so to speak. We hadn't seen any video taken from anybody else, and that's why we reacted in that way. And if that's your showing, well, that's just not good enough. In the case, I believe they were talking about the kind of the, I don't know, social media photo that went around of inside the cafeteria there, and we'll get to that discussion in another video. Don't even worry about that, guys. But they were, that was one of the only images that we had seen, and we were basing our opinion off that. And honestly, it just wasn't a good showing. Now, we have a lot of great things to say about the Star Cruiser. Trust me, you want to go down there, like and subscribe, because that's going to be a great video. We have a lot of good stuff to say, but at the time, there wasn't much good to say about it. And that's what we were basing our reactions on. We're not shills, we're not grifters. We're going to tell you how it is. And I think that's what sets OG55 apart.
Right. Well, exactly. And it's easy for it would be as a content creator in this space, it would be so much easier for me just to bash JPEG every single video. Yep. That's the popular thing. And I would get, round of applause. Yeah. Fuck JPEG, Yep. But I don't want to do that because I don't really feel that way. Like I really want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't think that he's 100% bad, and I don't think he's 100% good. I want to have a real honest look at the situation. Yeah. So yeah, that comment kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way because it was like kind of accusing us of being negative for the sake of negative with the Star Cruiser, but that's not who we are. We were negative in that video because what we saw was just not good. Now, our opinion has changed after watching Ordinary Adventures and their tour and things like that. My opinion's changed a whole lot, Yeah. And now I can tell you there's a lot more positive that I've seen, and my view has changed for the positive for the Star Cruiser. But at the time, the images and the stuff that we were given were not good. And I'm not going to lie to my audience and say, yeah, it was fantastic, because it wasn't, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I think that's what our viewers appreciate. They appreciate the honesty.
It basically comes down, if it's good, we'll say it's good. If it's not so good, we're not going to mince our words about it. And I'm going to save a lot of this for when we do talk about our discussion with the Galactic Star Cruiser, but I'll just say this part. I kind of take the Galactic Star Cruiser honestly like Chapek himself. There's parts of it that are very good, and there's parts of it that aren't so good. And, and as I said, I'm just going to leave it at that because we'll have a lot to discuss for that video. But yeah, it basically just comes down to the fact that on this channel with the three of us or anyone who is partaking in this channel, we say our minds, we say it respectfully, but we tell the truth.
Right, exactly.
Because a lot of these guys, a lot of these vloggers, they don't. I mean, they give you a song and a dance a lot of times. There are some honest people out there. That's not to say that all vloggers are the same way. But some vloggers, like you said, OG, they're grifting. They're grifting
it just makes you question. That's what it's more so. It makes you question to say, is it really that good? Is that restaurant really that good? Or is it something that I have to really see for myself? Which again, going back to Pete Werner, a lot of times when he says, a dining review or what have you, he will say, these are our opinions. If you still want to experience it for yourself. But for someone to say, oh yeah, this is the best thing on property. This is number one. This is, and if they have that kind of that reputation where it's like, oh, well, are they grifting, or are they, you can't really 100% trust their judgment.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Well, and that comes to kind of like the monetization element of this whole community too, in that once you start to kind of introduce sponsorships, and things like that, it does alter, look, let's be like, we did a review on the Magic Candle Company. None of us are sponsored by them, so we feel very free to say what we really feel. Hey, the pirate candle doesn't smell like pirates. You know what? It just doesn't. Yeah. But if they were to sponsor you, you're going to be much more hesitant to call that out. You're going to, oh, it's perfect. We loved it. It's great. Buy 5 of them. It's a different thing. So when you start to incorporate these sponsorship deals and things like that, it changes the opinions of these vloggers, which affects the product, the content. and it kind of all goes from there. You know, it's all connected.
And even with our comments, we got a lot of people that wrote back saying, you know, we appreciate, you know, you guys telling the truth about the candles and what have you, because now we know what to kind of look out for, what not to try. You know, we appreciate your honesty, and that's the best thing that we can give to our viewers and listeners. However, there is one place in particular. I'm not too big on sponsorship, but there is one in particular I would not mind to have a sponsorship with. And Mr. OG55 got it right down below. Carl's Jr., you know who I am. Call me. I will sponsor the hell out of you.
True.
Sponsorship.
Yeah, George loves Carl's, and he lives very far from Carl's, which is sad. They need to build one in your neck of the woods, Mr. Family Man. They definitely do.
Yeah, that or the East Coast version of it.
Yes,
right.
Just
Hardee's, I think it is.
Hardee's.
Throw me a burger, fries, and shake, and I'm good to go. I'll mention you every single time.
Yeah, but yeah, I have to ask you guys, fellas, like, because you know, like what Vash was saying is the trend. Everything is trending lower for these vloggers, right?
Mm-hmm.
These Disney vloggers. Like, do you guys, like, in your personal life? Because like I'm a local, so I was never into the in-park vlogging thing because I'm always at the parks. I always felt like it's kind of a waste of my time to watch someone else at Disneyland. I'm there once a month anyway. I don't, you know.
Right.
But for someone who's out of state, like you fellas, you guys, that's more appealing to you because you're not there all the time. But do you feel like your personal viewing habits have changed with these vloggers?
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot.
Tremendously.
A lot.
For instance, there is and again, I'm not just going to mention their name just for the sake of, because I don't want to put them on full blast. You know, you know, these vloggers work hard and what they do, and, you know, and it's not to shame them or what have you. But there's one in particular that I used to watch where they were not a local, and I would watch them consistently because it was something that I had in common with. I loved watching someone take that journey to the airport, get on the plane, take the Magical Express. They're living the life through the camera, but as a vacationer. Once they became a local, they were doing more coverage as a reporter. And they were in there constantly every day where it's like, okay, here's this, here's that. And I think that's where the branding starts to dip down, is because really, how much can you cover without repeating yourself?
Right.
And that's where that's what happens for me. And there's times where I even go on YouTube and it's like, do I really want to search any of these Disney vloggers? Because they're all basically recording the same thing, but just in their own opinion on it. And that's where it's like, I pick one on that topic and then I leave that topic alone.
Yeah. That's a big part of this equation, I think. Go ahead, Mr. FreshlySqueezed.
Oh no, it's the reason I brought this whole thing up was because my viewing habits had changed profoundly based on what I felt about, how I felt about the company, and how I felt about in particular about some vloggers, but mostly it was just, Disneyland had, this thing that I had dedicated so much of my life to, and was really passionate about. That passion dwindled a little bit. It was hit a little bit because of everything that we've been seeing, and it was discouraging what we've been seeing. And I don't think I'm alone in that, and that's why I wanted to bring it up even for discussion today, was because it's profound, the kind of association that we have with the company now. I mean, it's I think it's different now than it was before, and that's a product of circumstance at the times, right? But it's also a product of the company's decisions and so forth. They kind of put themselves in this way, and the vloggers themselves have taken a hit, and how they've kind of rebounded, how and what trends we're seeing. I mean, has really kind of it's like, well, I'll do something else or watch something else because of what they're doing. So it's kind of like a combination of factors. But it's interesting when you talk about sponsorship and when you talk about your opinions, right? We have seen some vloggers who are maybe beholden to their fan base that they've accrued, right? And that's another form of this kind of bias, right? This another form of this kind of like, I don't want to say anything because it might upset my base. And that's also affecting people's decisions and their opinions of some things.
Well, yeah, if your brand as a content creator, if your brand really centers around kind of taking jabs at Disney, and then you go to some new Disney thing, and you actually really like it, that creator has a dilemma. Would you get ratioed by your own fans for saying you like it? Or do you just pretend like you don't because you want to play to the base? Now, I will give credit to WDWNT because he is very critical of Disney. And I know you, I think, George, you mentioned this as well. You said that you thought his review of the Star Cruiser, he was going to go like kind of really go all out, like, oh, this is terrible, right? And actually, so did I. To be completely honest, I thought the same thing. I thought he was going to completely rip it to shreds. And you know what? His review is honestly very, very fair. And actually, to be surprised, to be honestly kind of honest and actually very surprised, it was actually pretty positive. I mean, he had issues with some. He had
issues, but that's what I respect the hell out of him, because he did it so tastefully done. Like He did it so well, where he intertwined it with his review of giving a positive, moving to something negative, then going back to the positive. And again, because he is so thorough and so, outwardly spoken, especially towards the company itself, I can then rest my credentials to say, hey, you know what, whatever he says, I can take him serious.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Look, he has not been shy about his critiques of the company. He does not like Bob Chapek. It would he has every reason to hate this thing, right? Going into it, every reason to not like it, because, that's kind of his thing. He doesn't like Chapek. He wants change, at Disney. He doesn't like what's happening. He has every reason to not like this thing. And he comes back and it's a mostly positive review. It surprised me, and it was very fair and honest. I got to hand it to him for that. I do.
And it's hard to do that, because even going into it, I mean, Walt Disney World News Today, Tom Corliss, and like Len Testa, they were calling out media for, hey, don't listen to these guys. These guys haven't paid for it, whatever. Kind of alluding to the fact that this might not be worth it. This experience, the Star Cruiser experience, might not be worth it, and they might be putting out glowing reviews, even though they actually don't feel that way. And then for them to come back and kind of go, you know what, this wasn't too bad. that was an interesting take. And it just, it kind of goes to show, like, the people who we have the most respect for on here, and we've said it multiple times, are the people who kind of stay true to themselves and aren't swayed by even what they formerly have said, but also, the biases that can be incurred while you're going down this path of, media, vlogging, whatever.
And that really is at the end of the day, like, and this is what I said in that video about what I'm looking for in a Star Cruiser review. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I really don't care if the person loves the experience or completely hates it. All I really want is an unbiased, honest review. So if you really feel like, you know what, the galactic line dancing is like the best thing ever, then own that. You love that. That's awesome. You feel like the experience was terrible. Own it. That's awesome. Just be genuine. And it's getting harder and harder to find that genuineness in this space because of everything we talked about with the money, the sponsorships, the agendas, the motives, the different brands that the creators have kind of built for themselves. So there's very few out there that will give you the honest thing. And it's not about being positive or negative, you guys. It's about just honesty, because you can be fake as hell, whether you could be fake as hell with the positivity, and you could be fake as hell with the negativity. It has nothing to do with that. Genuineness is just about being real about how you really feel. And that's because it's in short supply right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. No question about it. I mean, it's oh man, I mean, so many people have these hot takes. So many people go from like one side to the other, and it's just these huge swings. Maybe stay there, maybe not. And I like the nuance. I like the fairness. I mean, I know you, OG. I mean, one of the big reasons why I'm even on this show right now is because OG found me on Twitter giving both sides of the argument, always attempting to be fair, always attempting to be objective in my analysis or whatever. And that's kind of, that's kind of what this show's all about. This channel's all about. It's just being fair and being, as unbiased as possible, being objective as possible, but also kind of having your opinion, but have it be maybe separate from your analysis. That kind of stuff.
That was the complete opposite. I stalked him, so that's why it's like.
Okay.
I think he said, George, you sent in a Q&A question years ago.
Yes.
And I read it on the, in a video. And you messaged me saying, you pronounced my last name right. You're the first time someone pronounced my last name right. Because I'm Italian too, buddy.
Yes.
I'm Italian too.
That's great. That's fantastic. Well, look, it's this thing that kind of brings us together, and honestly, that's what the vlogging was all about, right? It's this kind of thing, like, hey, it doesn't matter what political preference you have, what other preferences you have maybe in your life. It's this thing that kind of brings us together that we can talk about and discuss. And honestly, right now, when it comes to the Disney brand, that might be tarnished a little bit, but hopefully things rebound.
Yep, absolutely. We'll see. It's an ever evolving landscape right now, and it'll be interesting to see where it ends up.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, thank you, fellas. I really do appreciate both of you, taking the time and doing this video for me, because this is a topic that I think we all kind of agreed on, like, we have to hit again, and the fact that we were able to come together, make it work as well as it has, is a testament to you guys. So thank you very much. George, why don't you go ahead and tell people where they can find you, and go do it.
Absolutely. And beforehand, just really quick shout out to Drunk 3PO for showcasing part of our segment. He did the best he could because he had a lot of people in the chat room, but we really do appreciate that you took the time to add us into your live chat. And I'm a huge fan of yours, so kudos to you. Yeah. But anyway.
I want to echo that. Thank you so much for that. That was cool. I mean, he reached out to me, which he didn't even have to do, to be quite honest with you. He reached out to me in the comments and said, "Hey man, I really like your videos. Is it cool if I do like a reaction?" And I said, "Yeah, that's awesome." So he did it on the live show, and that was really cool. I don't always agree with Drunk 3PO. Me and Drunk 3PO probably have completely different Star Wars opinions, or maybe not completely different, but we probably would disagree quite a bit. But you know what? That's what it's all about, right? Conversation, disagreeing, being civil, right? That's just what it's about. The community needs more of that. So
yeah,
but yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing the video. That was really cool. Really, really cool.
Yes. But anyways, you can find me on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You could also find me on Twitter at Disney George, and of course on Mr. Orange Grove 55's channel with Citrus Corner.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Why don't you go ahead, OG? What? Tell the fine viewers at home where they can find you.
Well, you could find me here at Orange Grove 55. We do content all the time. We do Disney parks. We also do the streaming side of things, the studio side of things. We have this show that we do periodically called the Orange Nerd Show, which we talk about the MCU, Star Wars, like Disney Plus, stuff like that. So, we do quite a bit here. It's a nice little variety. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you. And all opinions here are welcome. So if you disagree with us, you have a home here on OG55. You don't have to agree with me on everything. These two guys don't. When I met Vash, me and him had drastically different Star Wars opinions. Drastically different.
We still do.
We still do. And it's just, and that's okay. And that's what makes it fun, because I don't want to get up here and just have everyone just like repeat my opinion. That's boring, right? Let's have a little spice.
And I'll say this, whoever you are, if you have a completely different opinion of any topic that I talk about, I will be more than happy to listen to you over some lunch at Carl's Jr. If you're buying, I'm there.
Exactly. No, sometimes we'll seek those people out, and it's like, hey, you have a different opinion than us, come on the show. Let's discuss it, kind of thing. So absolutely, we invite all that kind of conversation. I do want to say, thank you so much, Drunk 3PO. This was awesome. for having, for showcasing that clip. I mean, that was really, really cool. So thank you for that. But yeah, with me, you can find me at VashSky on Twitter. You've heard the whole thing before. This is Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
But really nothing compares with a freshly squeezed.
Right? So that's where you can find me on the channel you're watching. Go down below. Give us a comment. What do you think about this kind of vlogging thing? Do you think we're doing okay in comparison? I don't know. Like, give us your thoughts, because we love the criticism, we love the compliments, whatever you have to share. Like and subscribe, and I think that's it, fellas. I think we'll catch them later.